Hiya, mate. Welcome to the first lesson in poetry this year. And I know what some of you are thinking, but it's really not as bad as you think it is. The trick is that this poem was written in 1794, so there's no chance that I'm going to ask you to guess what the poet was thinking at the time. That's almost like an impossible task. The important thing it is to do is, when you're reading poetry, is to understand and to remember that you make the meaning out of the poem, not the poet, because the poet is dead. So let's just think of it like a puzzle. And here are some of the tools that you can piece any poem together from. Right? You don't need to worry about what the poet was thinking at the time. It's not about that. It's about putting pieces of the puzzle together. So first of all, when you look at any poem, you look at repeated ideas, repeated colours, repeated verbs, repeated adjectives, and not necessarily exactly the same repetition, but certainly the same style. Right now, in this poem that we're looking at, obviously you can see that tiger is repeated at the beginning. So it's up to you what you make of that, really. But also, you'll see that there are various other things in the poem that are repeated throughout. It's like the use of questions, for example. You can see just by looking at the poem, without reading it, that there are questions here, 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 and so on, all the way through the poem. So you don't really have to worry about actually understanding what the poet mean, or what the poem might mean, but you need to understand that the use of questions brings out a different side of the poem. Clearly, it's a questions where it's a poem where the poet or the speaker, right, is trying to find an answer to certain things and not necessarily telling us anything. So, it's important to look for patterns, and patterns might be in repetition of certain words, or it might be in certain devices that the poet uses. In this instance, questions. Now, I'm not going to talk you through this poem, but what I want to get across to you is that it's important not to worry about what every single line means in the poem, because what you should get by the end of reading any poem is just a sense of what it's about, and that you can do through various other things as well. So look for alliteration, look for onomatopoeia. That's when sounds and words sound like what they're supposed to be. So splash or hiss or bang. Look for similes and what kind of similes are being used. Look for metaphors, look for questions, like I said. And if you don't know what these are, then Google them. If you don't know what an imagery is, then Google it. If you don't know what a simile is, then Google it. And you'll find that all of these things are out there if you look for them carefully. Look for unusual words and phrases. Look for things that you don't know the meaning of. So, for example, in this poem, you might look for the word immortal, which is there, badly underlined. But anyway, you can see what I mean. What does immortal mean? And what is the poet trying to say about immortality? Okay, again, something you can look up when you need to. Okay, look at this stanza here. You've got lots of imagery about building, about making stuff, about objects. But then also, if you look at some of the other imagery, you can look at sort of the negative words that are being used. Look at that there. Look at that there. There. Fearful. Burning. And so on. So you can really try and find lots of just different ways into a poem. You don't have to think, okay, well, I've read the poem, I still don't get it. You do get it. It's just a case of working out exactly what you make of it, and not try to guess what William Blake was trying to say.